on this year's topics. Thank you to all of the judges and participants and all of those who planned this great event. As always, we hope to implement some of your ideas into our programming as we're building tomorrow's civil rights leaders. Today's contestants become tomorrow's interns, and tomorrow's interns sometimes become today's employees. So we work side by side, although now we're working at a 6 feet social distance to eliminate discrimination in the state of Connecticut. And without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to consider this meeting of the Kids Court competition called to order.
Thank you so much. Tanya Hughes, for those of you who don't know, is the Executive Director of the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. And I am Cheryl Sharp, and I am the Deputy Director of the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. Kids Court was started back in 1993 when myself and Ray Thiesfield Van were in our last year of law school, and we wanted to create a program to raise the social consciousness of students regarding civil and human rights issues. We both ended up working for the state of Connecticut at the State of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. And so this program has been in existence for 26 or 27 years now. So we are so excited. Every year we have our Kids Speak program where students come and talk about civil and human rights issues. We were unable to have Kids Speak this year due to the pandemic, but we decided to go forward with our Kids Court program, and we are so excited for all of the participation. I wanted to give a shout out to Janice Rustico. She is a teacher, and she actually emailed me once we thought we were going to have to cancel both events and said that they were going to hold their own competition at their school. And that was the inspiration for us to go ahead and attempt to do this. We are hoping that we are technologically savvy enough to pull this off. We think we are. And we have some exciting topics for you. I am going to be moderating this event along with my colleague and friend, Michelle Dumas-Kuehler. And I want to thank all of our partners. We have state agencies, nonprofit organizations, the Attorney General's Office, and the Commission on Equity and Opportunity, and Women and Children and Seniors, and we have our very own commissioners, and we have a Superior Court judge recently retired, Juliette Crawford. And so we are so excited for the competition, so excited to hear what you students have to say. I am going to tell you what the topics are. They are hashtag immigration, building up or tearing down walls. Hashtag gun control, whose guns? Hashtag climate change, environmental equality. Hashtag what the faith, freedom of religion. Hashtag bullying, by the bus, my town, my school, your bus. Hashtag COVID-19. These topics were designed to really get young people, middle school and high school students, to start thinking about global civil and human rights issues at an early age, so that they can be they could be the change agents in our society. We are looking to inspire and encourage the next generation of civil rights leaders. And we are so happy that you have all joined us today. And I cannot wait to hear this year's students. This is the 2020 class of the Connecticut Kids Court Finals competition, and we could not be more excited. We have some of our CHRO staff that has joined us, some of our CHRO management. I am proud and happy, and I just want to say also thank you to Ray Thiesfield, who is the co-founder of this program. She is now an attorney, a partner in Washington, D.C., and we've seen many of our Kids Court students go on to do great things in the civil rights arena. And we think that you will also, all of the contestants, all of the finalists. And I wanted to lastly say that you will all receive a plaque from our agency, a gavel, monetary rewards. Of course, if you take the top prize, you'll get the largest monetary reward, and it will be mailed to you. Normally, We pass them out during the competition, and we give you citations from the governor's office and the legislature. We are unable to do that, obviously, because we are virtual, but that does not mean that we will not reward you just the same. So welcome, and take it away. You're up, my friends.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Dumas-Kuehler, and I'm an attorney at the Commission on Human Rights.
It seems like Michelle is having our first technical difficulty. So, Michelle, are you there? What Michelle was going to say was the mission of our agency is to eliminate discrimination through enforcement, education, and advocacy in housing and employment, in places of public accommodation such as schools and stores and hospitals and restaurants and so forth. And Michelle is back. I was just saying what you were going to say.
Twice, and I'm like practically sitting on top of my internet and modem, like just to ensure this wouldn't happen, and it's failing me. But I can hear from the end that Cheryl did announce the mission statement of the agency, and I wish that I could see all of you, not as little squares on my screen, but in a larger audience, because I know what an incredible commitment it takes in general to participate in this competition. And I know that during this time, because I have 3 children, one of which goes to IAR, which is one of the schools featured in the middle school competition, that it's really difficult just to get your work done, let alone write essays on these very weighty and important topics. So if I were there, I'd give you a big round of applause, because you've done an incredible job being a part of this competition and making it to this final phase of the competition. I can't say congratulations enough, because I know how difficult it is. So I really, really wish I were be there in person, and hopefully I'll stay here virtually. But nice work, everybody. Great job in this really, really hard time.
Now I want to officially announce our judges, and then the competition will begin. So we have the Honorable Juliet Crawford, and you should be able to see all of the judges. We ask that they remain in the screen. The Honorable Juliet Crawford has done this Kids Court competition for so many years. She has blessed us with her presence, and is a veteran judge for the competition, and a judge in the Superior Courts. So thank you so much for being here with us, and I am sure that the students are excited that they get to be judged by a Superior Court judge. Next, we have in my screen, Vanessa Avery. She is an Associate Attorney General. I'm sure that all of you know what the Attorney General's office is and does, and if not, look it up. It's important what they do and who they are. She is an Associate Attorney General, and she has also been here to be a judge and participated and partnered with the agency on many occasions. Next, we have Stephen Hernandez, and his agency has many names to it. So it's the Commission on Women, Children, and Seniors and Equity and Opportunity, I think. But he will clarify that if I have not said the names in the appropriate order. Then we are joined by 2 of our very own commissioners, Commissioner Lisa Giliberto, and she has served with us as a judge of this competition before, and also serves as one of the commissioners of our agency, and Commissioner Nicholas Kapoor, who I believe served as a judge of this Kids Court competition last year. So we have this esteemed panel of judges, and we are so excited. And I see a hand raised, and it is our executive director. Are you intending to raise your hand? And if so, are you going to speak? She's shaking her head. No.
That was an accident.
That was an accident. Okay.
Glad
So we will press on. Michelle is going to give you some of the ground rules, young people, so that you know exactly what you need to do when you need to have your cameras on and off. And let the competition begin. Michelle?
So this is going to be important. And if you have questions as we go along, just please feel free to type them on the text box or ask them in a non-interruptive way of the people who are speaking. But what we are going to do is all of the judges are going to keep their camera on. The contestants are going to be called by name, starting with the middle school contestants in the order that they're in our program, which hopefully you have a copy of, but you will hear your name being called. When it is your time to speak, what you need to do is you need to turn your camera on and your audio on. Otherwise, keep them both off. When it is your time to speak, turn your camera and your audio on, and then it will be your time to orally read your essay. When you've completed your essay, stay on, because our judges are going to ask you questions about your essay. And we've decided, and some of you might have been involved with this, that the judges will raise their hands. So Cheryl or I will call that judge's name so that you know that that person is asking you a question, and then you'll be able to answer the question. When everybody is completed asking their questions, we ask that the judges turn their camera off and then do your scoring. And when you are finished with your scoring, turn your camera back on. This is like the school version of putting your pencils down so that we will know that you're ready to go to the next person who is going to give their essay. So cameras off means I'm still scoring. Camera back on again means I'm all set scoring and I'm ready to hear the next essayist. Does that make sense? Anyone have questions about what I just said? It's good? All right. Awesome. If people have questions, again, there is, for those of you who have the raise hand feature, you can do that and we will address that. Otherwise, just as I said, conveniently ask a question when an essayist is not speaking or when questions are not being asked. All right. I would ask in general of all the participants too that they just keep their microphones on mute, as I will shortly when we're done, just in case there tends to sometimes be weird background noise. There's not right now, but there may be, and sometimes it's hard figuring out who it is, so it's best just to have everybody on mute. Okay? We're good? All right, so we're gonna start. And our 2020 finalists for the middle school division, our first essayist is Srinidhi Bala, who is in grade 7 at Irving Robbins Middle School. And please, if I have mispronounced your name, please be so kind as to give the proper pronunciation of your name to the judges.
My name is Srinidhi Bala. Good evening, esteemed judges and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, Spanish flu, Rift Valley fever. All of these viruses include the geographic locations of where the virus originated. In 2015, the World Health Organization released best practices to avoid disease names based on ethnicity, religion, or geographic location. As such, the World Health Organization officially named the novel coronavirus COVID-19. Unfortunately, there is still widespread discrimination amidst the pandemic. We see discrimination against blue-collar jobs, people of color, and people of Asian origin. Through the pandemic, we see the importance of the blue-collar jobs that keep America running. In fact, blue-collar jobs, such as people who deliver our essential packages or cashiers at our local stores, deserved increased pay and privilege for risking their lives. Supermarket employees' jobs are physically demanding, and on top of that, now many are facing increased anxiety of contracting the virus and spreading it to their loved ones. Just a couple of weeks ago, one frontline ER doctor died of suicide after treating many COVID-19 patients. A doctor who could have had potential help and resources felt helpless. So how do we make sure that our frontline grocery workers and delivery people, who may not have the same level of awareness as frontline healthcare professionals, get the help they need? Jackie Mayoral, a Ralph's supermarket employee, told the Washington Post that her store managers refused to reveal how many employees were infected and ordered her and her colleagues not to talk about her sick colleagues around customers. Only through the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union did she find that more than 20 of her colleagues tested positive for the virus. All of these store employees are risking their lives, and at the least they deserve transparency from their employers. Blue-collar job workers should be given enhanced access to healthcare and mental health support services. Employers should provide free therapy and counseling sessions to the employees. Employers should also consider waiving the copays for mental health consultations for their employees to encourage them to get access to these facilities. We are also seeing that the virus is hitting minority communities the hardest. According to the Center for Disease Control and Protection, New York City identified death rates among African American persons at 92.3 deaths per 100,000 population, and Hispanic Latino persons at 74.3 deaths per 100,000. This was substantially higher than the white persons' 45.2 deaths per 100,000. The reason for this is people of color typically live in densely populated areas, making it harder to take preventive measures such as social distancing. Due to inconsistent healthcare, they have underlying health issues, which put them at a higher risk. In addition to that, they work in essential services such as transportation and food services, which bring them in close contact with others. Due to historical systemic discrimination, these communities were always in precarious social and economic conditions. Therefore, it is imperative that all symptomatic individuals are referred for testing, particularly African Americans and Latinos. According to Johns Hopkins Medicine, anecdotal data suggests that people from vulnerable populations who have COVID-19 symptoms may not be referred for testing as frequently as their white counterparts. This could mean further spread of infection and patients seeking help after they are seriously ill. Any person from a minority community who has COVID symptoms not referred to testing should stand up and advocate to have it done. COVID-19 testing facilities should be set up directly in community hotspots so that symptomatic individuals and their contacts can be tested. This will help in taking appropriate actions and curbing further spread of infection among the community. Individuals of Asian descent have been facing stigma. Across the nation, Asian Americans are being discriminated against and not treated appropriately due to their ethnicity. This may create large amounts of mistrust, anger, or hatred in a community. The FBI is also warning of a surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans. An analysis of self-reported incidents by Russell Jung, chairman of Asian American Studies Department at San Francisco State University, finds more than 1,800 reports of verbal abuse since its March 19th launch. Majority of the cases have been reported by Asian American healthcare workers, even though they represent 18% of the nation's physicians and 10% of the nation's nurses. Some COVID-19 patients refuse to be treated by an Asian descent frontline healthcare worker. Restaurants in Chinatown and Boston have also lost customers due to the fear of the coronavirus. The government of New York City cited a report which estimated a 40% sales drop for Chinese businesses in Flushing, Queens. If young kids are old enough to understand, they should be taught to bring it up to their teachers if they see it happening. If someone is discriminated against, they should stand up for what is right. We don't want to sow the seeds of hatred during this time of a pandemic, and we should take every step to build a better and kinder place for everyone. I really want to be one who stands up for right, whatever be the situation. I want to advocate for equality and equity amongst everyone, and would always want to spread love and peace among everyone. Thank you.
I'm muted. Judge Crawford, please feel free to ask your question.
Oh. In terms of recognizing the disparity, whether in healthcare or how people react to, say, a certain population like Asians, if you had to say something to anyone who has a megaphone, the governor, a mayor, the president, how would you succinctly say to them, here is what you need to do?
So the government should provide healthcare facilities for our frontline grocery workers. I would like to cite the in the Declaration of Human Rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the 25th article states that everybody has the right of health care, and if somebody is not able to provide that, the government should step in and help. So the government should step in and help our workers and provide them these services so that they are feeling okay.
Thank you.
I've so kindly muted myself. Commissioner Giliberto, please.
I just wanted to say that was amazing. Your research and your presentation, that was just incredible to listen to, and I learned a lot from you, so thank you. I just had a question. I just wondered, have you personally ever heard or experienced anyone with saying anti-Asian or anti-Chinese things in relation to this pandemic?
So in the Farmington Public Schools District, we do proactive circles, and doing proactive circles, we get to hear everybody's feelings and thoughts about sensitive subjects. And during one of these proactive circles during equity leadership, we found that one of our fellow students who has Asian origins, parents' restaurant had to be closed due to the concerns of the pandemic. And one of my other friends who live in Boston, a lot of her Asian origin friends' parents were worried to send their kids to school because they were worried that their children would be labeled by their ethnicity.
We have a question.
Yep. Attorney Avery.
Hi, can you hear me? I wanted to also say that I thought that was excellent and so comprehensive in terms of all the research that you discussed. And I like the way you put your personal feelings in there. My question for you was, with that being such a weighty topic, how did you decide to write on that as your essay topic from among all of the others?
So I have to admit, I was somebody who was very ignorant about this topic until I personally saw this. My nanny's son is has a blue collar job, and he was talking to us, and I felt his pain from this, and I realized that I am so lucky and privileged to stay at home, and we have limited ourselves from contracting the virus, and there are so many people who don't have the same facilities that I do, and that made me really research about this topic and learn a lot.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Great job. Our next essayist is Amani Snellings, and she is in the 7th grade and attends King Philip Middle School.
Were we going to take a minute to score or?
Yes. Okay. I just want for Amani Snellings to get ready because you're the next person to speak.
I'm back.
I have a reminder too for the audience. The judges are the only individuals who can ask questions of the essayists, just so that you know. So if you raise your hand to ask a question, we're not going to call on you because we are limited to only having the judge ask the student questions.
Will we have any facts?
Oh,
Yes.
yes, I'm sorry. My phone was dying. I'm trying to switch. Kayla Anthony, who is one of our CHRO Executive Division interns, if you could please come on and give us your fun fact.
Alrighty. So good evening. Congratulations on making it to the finals in the Kids Corps essay competition. You all had very well written essays that were very refreshing and gave us an insightful take on modern civil rights issues. My name is Kayla Anthony, as Michelle said. I'm a sophomore at Drew University and one of the many interns here at the CHRO. While the judges are discussing after each presentation, we're going to, the other interns and I are going to present some fun facts on a few different civil rights issues, including the ones we all wrote about. So our first fact has to do with LGBTQ rights, due to the fact that it's Pride Month this month. So here's our first fun fact. On January of 1975, the first federal gay rights bill was introduced to address discrimination based on sexual orientation. However, it was never brought for consideration. It wasn't until 1993 that Minnesota became the first state to ban employment discrimination based on both sexual orientation and gender identity when it passed the Human Rights Act.
Thank you, Kayla. Let me just
Thank
see.
you. And it seems that the judges are already.
I think we are. We're just waiting for Judge Crawford.
So while we wait for Judge Crawford, I'm seeing Kristen Daniels' hand up.
Sorry?
Oh, there we go. I think we're all set for our next essayist.
Our next essayist, Amani Snelling, grade 7, King Philip Middle School.
Amani, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Perfect.
I'd like to start by thanking everyone for coming. And I guess I'll start now. Imagine constantly living in fear. That is what life is like for many in the United States. It feels like every time you turn on the news, you hear about another school shooting, Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and so many more. Whenever anyone speaks out against injustice, they are met with cries of anger or silence. The arguments for gun control are about safety for everyone, not attempts to take away all the guns. Proponents are asking for common sense gun laws and the protection of children. Those that oppose these measures, such as the National Rifle Association, are often individualistic and hide behind the Second Amendment without thinking about the evolution of technology since 1787. America needs gun control because no one should have to constantly fear for their lives. Thousands have been killed at schools within my lifetime alone, and the vast majority of Americans support it. Gun violence has always been an issue in America, but now it's more talked about than ever before. A study featured in a Vox article last year showed that over 2,000 people have been killed by school mass shootings since the Sandy Hook tragedy less than 8 years ago. Millions of students and teachers that were supposed to teach them how to learn and grow are now instead having to learn where the best places to hide are in an active shooter situation. Even though a deadly virus is traveling around the world, I feel strangely safe. This March was the first March since 2002, me and my peers' entire lifetime, where the US didn't have a school mass shooting. No child should ever have to carry that kind of burden. In the past few years, there's been more and more fight for comprehensive gun control laws. Most Democratic presidential candidates for the 2020 election, including the presumptive Democratic nominee, campaigned on some form of gun control legislation. Additionally, groups like Black Lives Matter, Futures Without Violence, and March for Our Lives have popped up as advocates for gun control. They've shown their support through protests, viral hashtags, and pushing to introduce new bills. Despite the vast majority of Americans supporting gun control, there hasn't been much progress made. Powerful gun lobbies spend millions to support certain politicians. According to courts, the NRA spent over $50 million on the 2016 election alone. The NRA is a group that advocates for the Second Amendment. They believe that gun control in any form is a violation of their right to bear arms, but civilians don't need military-grade weapons, and no one who is considered a danger to themselves or others should ever be able to obtain a gun, legally or illegally. The point of common sense gun control isn't for all guns to be taken away, but instead to keep people safe. Loopholes in the system need to be closed that allow far too many tragedies to occur. The effects of gun violence on communities extend far past the few weeks the incident may have been mentioned on the news. It's felt by the parents whose children never got to experience all that life has to offer. It's felt when small children look for siblings and other family members that will never come home. The loss, the heartache, the grief caused by senseless deaths doesn't go away after the incidents are no longer talked about. It never fully goes away. It shouldn't be like this. America doesn't need more half-hearted promises of safety. What we really need is action and change. Is it too much to ask to want to grow up?
Thank you. And I see we have a question from Commissioner Nick Kapoor.
Thank you, Cheryl. Amani, that was great. So I want to pick up on something you talked about, the evolution of technology. And the Second Amendment has had a lot of cases from our appellate jurists over the last several years, and there's a lot more coming. One of the things that our judges have had to deal with is the evolution of technology and some of our other amendments in the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment being applied to the internet, for example, speech on Facebook, speech wherever. The Fourth Amendment, I don't want to embarrass myself, searches and seizures. Searches and seizures on our cell phones. What does it mean for an unlawful search on a cell phone? The founding fathers of our country could not have contemplated something like that, but we see our judges applying our federal constitution to issues that are arising in today's world. So my question to you is, as technology has evolved over time, where do we draw the line from what the original intent of the Second Amendment was and where we are today? Should people be able to have guns at all? And if they should, what should be the maximum level type of gun you think they should have?
Yes, thank you. This is something I've thought a lot about as I've researched more and more on the issue. And obviously, the founding fathers couldn't have possibly imagined all the technology we have today. Assault weapons, semi-automatic weapons. My personal interpretation of that right is that people should have the right to protect themselves with with violence, with guns if they see fit. But as I mentioned before, an everyday person doesn't need an automatic assault rifle to protect themselves in situations that arise in everyday life. So I personally feel that there should be bans on military grade weapons and that they shouldn't be available to the everyday person.
Great answer. Thank you so much.
We have a question. Steve Hernandez, the Executive Director.
Thank you so much, and a succinct and very, very good presentation. Congratulations. My question has to do with the role of young people who are not yet professionals, whether it be professionals in the law or policy. What is the role of young people in promoting some of these policies in a public sphere? Is there a role, and if so, what is it?
As we've seen over the years with many different generations, young people are the future. They're typically the ones pushing for issues that affect everyday people, such as this one. And as we've seen through that, like with social media now, a simple hashtag, a tweet, something that takes just a minute or two to create could change a lot. Young people are changing the world. So I personally feel that young people have a big impact on issues like this.
You're muted, Cheryl. Oh, she's actually frozen. So I'll call on you, Judge Crawford.
Okay. Again, thank you for spending the time to present such an essay to us. It gives some insight into what you're thinking. So what I'm curious about is, in terms of your school, because you mentioned what students have to deal with in terms of school shooting. Has there been any discussion in your school concerning balancing the individual right, according to the Second Amendment, and the general, all of the others? How do you balance the rights of everybody else against the rights of the individual?
Unfortunately, we haven't yet had those conversations, but as a member of my school's Bridges and Diversity Club and someone who often goes to meetings that are had about topics like this one, I'm sure it will be a topic in the future, especially with it being more and more talked about.
Thank you.
Awesome. So seeing no more questions, I will ask that the judges go and start scoring. And I say thank you so much. That was an incredible essay, and I really appreciate you giving your time to us. Don't go anywhere, but if you could just turn your camera off, that would be awesome. Thank you. And now, moving on to our CHRO fun facts, is our next executive intern, Jordan, who will be giving us our next CHRO fun fact.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan. I'm from West Hartford, Connecticut. I'm a rising sophomore now at UConn. I enjoyed reading all of your essays, and congratulations for making it to the finals. I enjoyed reading all your essays, and I'm looking forward to hearing you read them out loud now and seeing who is going to win, even though you're all winners in the end anyways. So my fun fact is on bullying, and the fun fact is prior to 1999, there was no anti-bullying legislation in the United States. Wait, did it work? Oh, I think this.
Yeah, I heard you, Jordan.
Okay, I was making sure. Did you hear?
We did.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know if there was difficulty.
We're going to have, Jordan, thank you. We're going to have one more fun fact. So we have a little bit of time, and that will bring us back to Kayla, who will give us our next fun fact.
Righty. So our next fun fact is actually going to be about gun control. So according to USA Today, Singapore has perhaps the world's strictest gun laws. Their gun laws state that ordinary citizens are not permitted to have access to any firearms. So, yeah, that's our fun fact.
And I think we have time for one more fun fact from a new intern named Isabel. Isabel, why don't you tell people who you are and give them your fun fact?
Sure thing, Michelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Isabel Wagner. I'm from Farmington, Connecticut, and I'm a rising junior at Boston College. Just want to say congratulations one more time. And my fun fact is actually about the COVID-19 crisis. It's very similar to our first essayist. And my fun fact is that members of racial and ethnic minorities are more likely to live in densely populated areas because of institutionalized racism in the form of housing segregation. People living in densely populated areas may find it more difficult to practice prevention measures like social distancing, and this, along with disparate access to cleaning products and healthcare, contributes to the higher ratio of minorities contracting the virus than whites.
Thanks, Isabel. And I think we are, let's see.
Yes, the hand is raised. We have all of our judges back.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. So our next essayist is Mary Hannon, who's in grade 7 at Irving Robbins Middle School.
Hi, everyone. And thank you so much for coming. I'm really honored to be reading my essay to you. So I'll begin. In America, we've always held our heritage in high regard. That's why we call ourselves Americans, because people from all over the world came together in a search for freedom and equal rights. I've grown up in a family with strong pride in our Irish, German, Dutch, and Italian heritages. That pride is what makes us Americans. Yet somehow we forgot what that means. We treat immigrants like criminals. Once they cross into the United States of America, they're not greeted with love, but bombarded with questions as people back away in fear. As long as the people who make America, America are treated this way, we are no longer the nation that our immigrant ancestors worked so hard to build. I believe that immigrants' rights are constantly disregarded as current U.S. administration attempts to deny certain groups of people entrance into the United States. In Trump's 2016 campaign for president, he promised to build a big, beautiful wall on the southern border of the United States to keep Mexican and other Latino immigrants from crossing the border. He claimed that it would make America safer because he assumed that Latinos were murderers and rapists. He also claimed that letting in more immigrants from Mexico and other Central American countries would result in a lowering in the economy because many would be coming from poverty and would need financial aid. I believe that what he said and what he did was stereotypical and racist. He had an opportunity to help others, but he declined them in favor of his own much safer country. Because he is safe and because he's wealthy, he cannot understand the peril that some of these people are in. Not only was Trump's campaign to build a wall insulting and stereotypical, but it denied many of their human rights. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it denied them their right to seek out a safe place to live if they were escaping danger. He denied them asylum and told them that they were not allowed in America. Trump also mentions that helping and even just allowing more Latino immigrants would lower the economy because they would need further financial aid. This, in a way, is denying them the right to food and shelter. Some of the immigrants coming to America from South America are coming because they need food, shelter, a safe place for their families. America has denied them this to protect our economy. Should we want to deny people a safe, sheltered place to live with food and clean water to protect our own existing wealth? Many immigrants take jobs that many people native to America do not want, thus providing a strong backbone for the nation. What has happened to the land of the free and the home of the brave? Not only did Trump want to build a wall to keep South American immigrants out, but he separated children from their families when they came to America. 1,174 children were separated from their families. Of that shockingly large number, only 463 were reunited with their parents. Trump insists that what he was doing was to protect the children from the harsh detainment centers that their parents were sent to. This makes a very bold statement about Trump and the detainment centers. It does not say that they care about children. It screams at us, the United States of America, that our detainment centers treat humans like animals. If separating young, scared, naive children in a foreign country from their families is a better, more humane option than keeping them in our detention centers, there's a serious, serious problem. This terrible separation was a result of Trump and Immigration and Customs Enforcement enforcing their zero tolerance policy. The policy is working towards a 100% prosecution rate. As I mentioned before, this is depriving people of their right to a safe place to live. The poem on the Statue of Liberty says, "Can be you're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore." It instructs our nation to protect and provide refuge to all who come, not to prosecute them, not to separate them from their families, but to welcome them with loving arms. Not only South American immigrants are being deprived of their human rights, 7 predominantly Muslim nations are being banned from traveling or moving to the United States. Once again, people of minority in America are facing prejudice and stereotyping. However, a judge in Seattle, California, ruled against Trump's executive order. So he made the decision to temporarily lift the ban on some of the airports in the city. On Twitter, Trump posted, "I just cannot believe that a judge would put our country in such peril. If something bad happens, blame him and the court system. People pouring in. Bad." This just goes to show how uneducated people are about different cultures, like assuming all Muslims are terrorists. Many people in the United States of America are terribly afraid of other cultures. These immigrants are stereotyped, persecuted, stripped of their basic human rights. These are the people that make America what it is. All of those who have fled to this nation seeking safety have shown that America is the refuge for all those who thirst for freedom. However, many schools and communities are working toward acceptance for all, like IR's Equity Leadership Group and Diversity Club, which works towards making all feel welcome. We must start to act like the nation we claim to be and give all immigrants their rights and treat them like real people, like real Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Judges, do you have questions for Mary? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Giliberto.
Hi, Mary. Again, that was an amazing, amazing essay. Thank you for presenting that. That was wonderful to listen to. Do you think that President Trump or anyone, do you think that walls are built to give security or to give a sense of security?
I do think it is to give a sense of security because they do put a lot of immigrants in these very, very harsh detainment centers. And I think that building a wall is just going to hurt people even more. And I don't think it's going to make America safer. I think it's going to make it more segregated.
That's a really good answer. I agree with you.
Attorney Avery.
I want to start off by saying I concur that your essay is excellent. It's very thorough and covered a lot of the important issues on this topic. My question for you, because you did such a great job here, is whether or not you have suggestions for us, the adults, on how we might try to combat what you talked about, the fears and stereotypes that people play on. Are there things that you've done at your school that you think we could try to replicate as adults so that people can address these unfounded fears and stereotypes that lead to a lot of the discrimination?
I think some of the things that I have really found helpful is just talking about these kinds of things, providing education, because a lot of people, they don't understand something that they might say is upsetting or rude or even racist. So I think just talking about these kinds of things and listening to other people's perspectives and their experiences, I think is really going to help, avoid a lot of microaggressions that people say, like, you speak English very well, or you have good articulation, things that passive aggressively really hurt people.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Stephen Hernandez has a question.
Thank you so much and great job. My question is, if I am to concur with your underlying argument that walls do not make our country safer, which I do, how would you recommend that we actually make our country safer and people in our country safer?
I think that instead of preventing people from coming, just helping more people get into America in a safer way, because a lot of people do have trouble coming into the United States legally. So I think just providing more assistance and really helping people get in legally is going to make America a lot safer, and also keep our immigrants safe and give them the rights that they deserve.
Great. Any other questions? Awesome. Mary, thank you so much. You were incredible. Your essay is incredible. I'm going to ask that the judges now take their leave to score. And then I'm going to ask one of our interns to give us a CHRO fun fact.
Thank you.
You have next. Thank you, Mary. Next up, we have Nat. Nat, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Nat Casanova, and I'm from Danbury, Connecticut. I'm an upcoming senior at UConn, and today I'm going to be presenting you with some facts about immigration. My first fact is that studies have consistently found that immigrants are less likely to be incarcerated than native-born Americans, and that there's a negative correlation between levels of immigration and crime rates. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, while both the overall percentage of immigrants and the number of undocumented immigrants increased sharply between 1990 and 2010, the violent crime rate in the U.S. during that time plummeted 45%, along with the property crime rate that dropped by 42%.
Thanks, Nat. And our next civil rights fun fact comes from Isabel.
Hello again. My next fact is about religion and religious freedom in America. So, the U.S. has always been known as a Protestant nation, with its combined denominations accounting for about half the country's population. However, according to the 2014 Pew Research Center Religious Landscape Study, Protestants were found to no longer make up the majority of U.S. adults, finding that only 46.5% of Americans were now Protestant. This is closely tied with the rise of religious nuns, who are those unaffiliated with any religion. It also ties into the decline of Christianity in the U.S. The number of Protestant Americans has fallen since the 2007 Pew Research Center study, which still found that more than half of the U.S. adults identified as Protestants.
Michelle, you're muted. It seems like your mouth is...
My mouth is moving. I'm talking to myself, apparently. I think we have time for one more fun fact. Iana, if you would like to give us our next fun fact and just say a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Ayana, and I attend Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. And the fun fact that I will be sharing with you guys is about the civil rights movement. So many of you may know who Rosa Parks is. Most people think of Rosa Parks as the first person to refuse to give up their seat on the bus, which sparked the famous bus boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama. However, there are actually several women who came before her, one of whom was named Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old schoolgirl, so she was as old as some of our contestants are now, if not younger. And at the time, the NAACP and other Black organizations actually felt that Rosa Parks made a better icon for the movement than a teenager, which is why we know Rosa Parks and not Claudette Colvin. That's my fun fact.
Thanks, Ayana.
Thank you. And it seems like the judges are ready. And so we are going to ask that our next essayist get ready. Her name is Bridget Lloyd Taylor, and she is in the 8th grade and is from Chippen Hills Middle School. So if you could unmute yourself and turn your camera on, we are ready to hear from you. So it appears that we're having some technical difficulties. While Kristen works with that particular contestant, we will move on to Akshara Melapati, who is from the 8th grade, and she is from Irving Robbins Middle School. If you could unmute yourself and turn your camera on, that would be great. That is Akshara Melapati. And if I have mispronounced your name, please say it for us so that it is said properly. Thank you.
It was a fine pronunciation, one of the best ones. Thank you so much for providing the opportunity for us to do this. And I'll start. Hyphenated American. My voice is simply a complex song of two countries colliding. My laughter and sobs are hinted with a touch of both my homes. Is there really much to be ashamed of if English and my mother tongue both sang in love? My clothes are a collage of colors from two nations threading ideas of art. My taste and style are given a touch of both my lives. What is there to be scared of if my identities both took a glimpse of the world? Acculturation refers to the changes in immigrants' lives, including language, culture, and ethnic identity, attitudes, values, and social customs. Learning major languages may be crucial to work in certain jobs or to live in certain places of the country. However, changing your identity to simply make an effort to blend in with the others around you may eventually lead to psychological problems. It is because of a foreign nation, community, and lifestyle that assimilates countless immigrants to the U.S. mainstream culture. In the beginning, it may seem like the solution to many immigrants, but the American Psychological Association shows that this mentality has failed to make the lives of immigrants any safer. In fact, it will lead to racial identity issues and a further lack of belonging. We must advocate and raise our voices for those who come to the land of opportunities so they can have their chance to be themselves and thrive. Initially, immigrants who suffer or fear racial discrimination start losing their true identity and instead create a false one to fit in with the given system. Why do you think so many Asian Americans have two names? It is simply because they assume their original name will give away false stereotypes to a third party. For example, Xian Zhao, a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Toronto who completed his PhD in psychology, conducted an experiment to find that Chinese job seekers who came to live in America received more favorable responses from employers when they went by anglicized names. Our present reality is such that Asians are known to be smart and thus need to work far more to be accepted into institutions. Since this is the case, this population tries to mask themselves with American-sounding first names. This is completely wrong. Why should your name be what determines your chance of getting a job? Especially since this is the case, many people change their names at a very young age. Personally, in my own school, many of my Korean and Chinese American friends who are either immigrants themselves or children of immigrants are going by a different name for their whole lives. In fact, I would have never even known their true name until I specifically asked them. Even so, the hesitation that is found in their voices is a clear signal that they do not want the majority of the school to know their original name. They want to live, believing that their anglicized name is who they really are. It is unfortunate to know that the way we dress is also criticized in society. Although I'm not an immigrant myself, I lived in India for the first 4 years of my life and became very comfortable with the clothing kids wore there, and especially with the bindi, a mark worn on the forehead by Indian women. While coming back to the US, I was a very stubborn child who always wanted to wear the bindi to school and was quite comfortable with it. However, as I grew older and progressed in elementary school, I realized that when people talked behind my back, it was because I looked different than everyone else. My self-esteem was shriveled by the few comments I used to receive, and I almost immediately removed what was once the symbol of my confidence. I do not stand alone. There are a great number of us who remove a part of ourselves to be normal in a foreign land when truly being normal for us is following our own customs. And this is just one aspect. What about the people who wear headscarves? Immigrants who are African American, Muslim, Sikh, and several others go through a war every day deciding whether to stand out or to blend in. It is horrifying to know that there are two options in this world: change ourselves or stand up, and so many of us choose to change. Society should learn to accept the diversity in America, and we should flourish it. Why should our identity be lost just because we live in another part of the world? We should have the freedom to choose our names and how we present ourselves, and not be driven to a decision through peer pressure. Since its beginning, America has been known as the land of opportunities. We must never let newcomers feel unsafe to practice their native traditions. Instead, our vast community should tear down the walls of prejudice and see each other as one, regardless of our clothes, our accent, race, and homeland. Having a multicultural ideological belief that all cultural groups should have the privilege to retain their basic cultural practices will ensure that prejudice is reduced and self-esteem is enhanced by appreciating the differences in our world. My identity is an intertwining of my homeland's culture and another land's lifestyle. The way I speak, dress, and live is what defines me. I stand with the millions of people as we carry two worlds. I imagine us, the hyphenated Americans, who choose not to change to fit in. Rather, we are the masters of our own universe. We are all I ever wanted us to be. Thank you.
Commissioner Kapoor has a question.
Yes, thank you, Akshara. That was inspiring. The fact that you wear your identity on your sleeve is really awesome. And the fact that you are so proud of your heritage is great as well. I do have a question for you, though. Your passion for immigrants and the ability for people to live their truth in this country is a good one. But in every country, I shouldn't say in every country, in many countries, there are illegal immigrants. And even in our country today, we have illegal immigrants that come into our country. So do you believe that for those who illegally enter our country, there should be a pathway to citizenship, or should we not have that option for them?
I feel like for those who illegally cross, some of which who are actually scared to go back to their homeland and are in need of protection in another country and who seek for safety, those people should have the right to come in and live safely. Except for those people, I think, who just cross the fence or the wall just to become part of America, I think that's not right, and we should address that and not let the people that truly don't need safety from another country to come in.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much.
Judge Juliet Crawford has a question.
Juliet, you're muted.
Is it okay? All right. Sorry about that. I echo the congrats, because you can see the work that you did put into the preparation of the essay. My question goes, as an immigrant myself, and this just the broad spectrum, if you will, of the tired, the poor that had previously been welcome. One of the things that caught my ear was when you talked about people making changes and adapting. And what I kept thinking of, the more things change, the more they stay the same, in terms of thinking about Jews who changed their name to make it more English sounding, Italians who dropped some of the last part of their names, again, for the same reason. And here we are, and as much progress as we have made, we're pretty much in the same place. In terms of your school environment, and I don't know what the ethnic makeup of your school is, but how would you describe the environment in your school in terms of how immigrant students are treated, and what in your school, what efforts your school have made to make everyone feel included?
So in IAR, our school is very diverse. We have so many ethnicities in our school, and part of the Equity and Diversity Club in our school, what we do is we celebrate Heritage Month. And so recently we celebrated the Asian American and Pacific Islander month, and we made a presentation. And in the presentation, we listed the various types of heritage in the presentation. And when we sent it out virtually, we got several comments back saying that, wow, the presentation is about me. For once I feel involved. It's talking about me this time. And, that was very nice to hear. It shows that our groups are really trying their best to make sure that everyone's involved. And we've been progressing a lot through these groups.
Thank you.
Cheryl, you are muted. Oh, now you're not.
I kept pressing the button and it wouldn't unmute. We have a hand from Attorney Vanessa Avery.
Now let me unmute mine. Okay, my question, I agree, I echo what everyone else has said. We can see the work that went into your essay. My question is about multiculturalism and the diversity that you're talking about, and specifically languages. A lot of people have started debates about whether we should continue to have one language, English, as our official language, and to what extent we should incorporate more of other languages in our public school curriculum. Obviously, people learn foreign languages as they go, but English is still the dominant language. And I'm just curious as to whether you have opinions there as to whether we should be introducing other languages or considering other languages as part of our official educational curriculum.
Well, there are so many languages that we could provide in the school system. And since we have a fixed schedule, I don't think it would be completely possible to include all languages, obviously, but I think we are introducing students to world languages like Spanish and French, and some schools in the world even do Mandarin. And I feel like that really helps. And that shows the kids, the students that, and if we start having these language programs like earlier on in education, those students will feel like it's okay to speak more than one language in your house and to, in fact, speak your native language in your house instead of just speaking English. But yeah, I think that having the world languages in our school really helps students make sure that they feel comfortable talking in various languages.
Thank you.
Are there no more questions at this point? Then we will say bravo to this essayist and ask the judges to deliberate. And we will ask you, student, to put yourself on mute and to stay on the line and turn off your camera. We are going to ask that our last middle school contestant get ready while we hear a fun fact from our executive interns.
Alrighty, hello again. I'm Kayla. So I have a fun fact for you guys about LGBTQ rights. So here's the fun fact. So in 1973, Lambda Legal became the first legal organization established to fight for the equal rights of gays and lesbians. Lambda also became their very own first client after being denied nonprofit status. However, the New York Supreme Court eventually ruled that Lambda was able to exist as a nonprofit. So Lambda Legal is a nonprofit national organization committed to achieving full recognition of civil rights of lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, transgender people, and everyone living with HIV through impact litigation, education, and public policy. As a nonprofit organization, Lambda Legal does not charge their clients for legal representation or advocacy, and they receive no government funding. They depend upon contributions that come from their supporters all around the country.
Thank you, Kayla. We provide you with these fun facts to, as you wait to have the judges return, to educate you about civil rights issues that our agency deals with or covers, and civil rights issues that we feel are important. We are awaiting the arrival of, I think, one more of our judges or two more of our judges. So we will hear a fun fact from Jordan as I give the judges a reminder. This is our last middle school contestant, and then we have our 5 high school contestants. So please, as you deliberate, do it with all good speed, but we want quality. But we also want to make sure that we move the competition along. So please be mindful of that. And it looks like, are we still waiting for our judges? No, we have all of our judges back. So we will go back to Jordan after we hear from our next essayist, who was having some technical difficulties, but I understand has joined us now. It is Bridget Lloyd Taylor. She is an 8th grade student from Chippenham Hills Middle School. Bridget, if you could turn your camera on and unmute yourself, we are excited to hear from you.
Hello, I apologize for the technical difficulties, and I just want to say thank you for letting me advance this far along in the competition. I chose to do #gun control, so this is my stance on the current gun control issues. As a student in a public school, I know that gun control laws need to be stronger. I used to live in a state that had one of the most famous school shootings occur. That was in Colorado. Most of you know or have heard of the Columbine High School shooting. Now, I live in a state that has what I think is the most famous school shooting in the US, the Sandy Hook shooting. Every morning, my mom tells me to be safe when she is headed out for work. She says she is scared of something bad happening while I am at school. I fear because people will repeat history without a thought behind it. I fear because the laws are not strong enough. I fear my life will end when I am at school. When I'm at school, the only thing that I should be worrying about is maintaining my grades or getting a good grade on a test, not somebody killing my friends, injuring my friends, teachers, and even myself. School is meant to be a safe and peaceful learning environment. Gun homicides have increased over 30% since 2014, and these people are being murdered just because people don't follow the existing gun control laws. They might think that they can get away with murder because the laws are weak. I think that a new law needs to be introduced that makes gun buyers be on a type of probation for 5 to 10 years. I believe that all schools and public buildings should have metal detectors at all places of entry. Gun control is a topic that is not generally talked about, and I believe that as a country, not just as a state, that the laws need to be more appropriate for the present day. I am not just disappointed, I am angry, and I know that my anger is appropriate. The law that states we as citizens can bear arms was commonly debated. Were the founding fathers referring to civilians or militia recruits who could bear arms without infringement? In late December, Congress set aside $25 million in federal funding for gun violence research, thawing a nearly 2 decades long spending freeze. Nearly 2 decades? That is extremely ridiculous. Gun control is an issue that we need to focus on. Us students are the next generation going out into the workforce. More students killed means less sharp ideas that will shape the country. I think that all guns should be closely monitored. I hate going to school every single day worrying about dying. I go to school every day because I want to learn. I want to get places in life, and I want to be accomplished. None of that will happen if somebody decides to take a gun and kill people. If I die, my life won't mean anything. If I die, I am just another victim of a person who wanted to kill. I want my life to mean something. I want everybody's life to mean something. The direction we are headed with the existing gun laws is not good. More people will die due to a person behind a gun. I know this. I want to change the gun control laws into something a bit more modern. Gun control laws need to be changed, and I, Bridget Lloyd Taylor, a 13-year-old, stand behind my message. Thank you.
Great job. Do we have any questions from our judges? And Stephen Hernandez, if you could turn your camera on, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Judge Crawford?
Yeah. I'm sort of waiting. Yeah, I just have one question. Again, making it to this point. One of the things you used the phrase gun control, and you've acknowledged that, or courts have said there is an individual right to bear arms. What would you, when you say we need gun control, what do you envision?
Well, I think all guns need to have a GPS tracker. And also, if the gun buyer is not mentally stable or has a record of not being mentally stable, that they do not have the right to own a gun, because a lot of the guns that are being used to kill people these days are military grade guns, and those shouldn't be able to be used by the public for use.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Giliberto?
Again, a very powerful essay, told from the point of view of someone that it really matters. We need to hear from more students about what it's like to go to school in this kind of climate. You had mentioned that GPS tracker was such a great idea. I never heard of that before. But you had also mentioned a period of probation for gun buyers. Do you think that they should also have criminal background checks? Do you think that's helpful?
100%, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, I think that ends our middle school portion of the essayist. So we ask again if the judges can turn their cameras off and do their scoring, or excuse me, Attorney Hernandez, do you have a question?
Just a quick question, and
Okay.
thank you so much. My question simply, and you touched on, you alluded to this just a little bit, but what is the role of the gun manufacturer in terms of liability in this case? And thank you again for your idea about the tracking device, but what is the role of the manufacturer?
I am not. I think I read this word, but it could just be something that my mind is telling me, and it's not. Manufacturers, they make sure that it doesn't cross state lines or but then again, that might just be a figment of my imagination, and I'm not too sure about that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our middle school essayists. Excellent job to all of you. The way that our Kids Court competition runs is we don't announce.
Cheryl seems to be stuck, but what she wants to say is that we announce all the winners at the end of the competition. So we will judge, or we will do the scores for this last round and this last person, Bridget. And then once the scoring is over, if all the judges can turn their cameras back on again, and we'll move right into the high school competition. So we do ask that the middle school SES please stay with us through the entire event, and we will rejoin all of you when we're able to announce who the finalists are going to be. If you could do that, that would be great. And again, to fill some of our time and learn some fun facts, I'll ask that our CHRO interns, let's see, we are up to, I think we were at Jordan was going to come on. So Jordan, if you could turn your camera on.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks, Jordan.
Hi, I'm back again. So my fun fact is that Georgia was the first state to pass an anti-bullying legislation in 1999 after the Columbine shooting in Colorado. And it was actually passed within a month of the shooting. And it was in the last state to pass any anti-bullying legislation was Montana in 2015. And that's my fun fact.
Thanks, Jordan. And so our next fun fact is going to come from Kayla.
Righty. Hi again, everyone. So my fun fact is about gun control. So the regulation of firearms is decided by both state and federal governments. So although state and local governments regulate whether residents may, for example, carry guns in public, it's the laws regulating who may receive or possess guns are set out at the federal level. That's my fun fact.
Thanks, Kayla. And let's see, Cheryl, do you want to wait, or do you want to do one more fun fact?
Are all of our judges back?
We just need 2 more.
Okay, so let's do another fun fact.
All right, next up is Isabel.
Hi again. My fun fact is going to be about COVID-19 and the discrimination around it again. There has been increased pressure and racism seen towards Asians, in particular East Asians, like people of Chinese and Japanese descent, likely because the virus originated in China. These people are perceived to have the virus more often than other races when simply displaying common cold symptoms, and are often blamed for the introduction of the virus to the rest of the world. It doesn't help that people continue to call the virus a Chinese virus. This only adds the tensions between different races and makes the situation more inflammatory.
Thanks, Isabel. And I think just to get our next SAS ready to go, because I'm not sure if you know the exact order, Alima Jolie Disarms, I've asked you also again to pronounce your name. You will be first in the high school finalist section. So So get ready, but we'll let you know when to turn your camera on and your microphone. I think we're almost there, hopefully.
In the meantime, we'll hear another fun fact.
Our
And we
next.
will
Oh no!
encourage-
Yeah, go ahead, Nat.
Hi, everyone. Another interesting fact I have is that immigrants collectively pay between $90 and $140 billion each year in taxes. And a recent study found that undocumented immigrants alone pay approximately $11.64 billion in taxes each year.
Thanks, Nat.
It looks like we're ready for our next essayist. So we are excited to bring to the stage, and we ask you to turn on your microphone. And this is the high school division. I want to remind the judges that you can ask up to 2 to 3 questions in total between all 3 of you. There should be no compound questions that are asked, and the questions should be direct and straightforward. And check your watches. I'm just going to say that. And we are excited for the high school competition to begin, and we will announce the winner of the middle school and high school division at the end of the competition. So that's Lee Sarmes.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity again. Okay. So my essay is called Inequality and the Pandemic, the Inhumane Injustice in Society. America, land of the free unless you're Black. Land of the free unless you're a minority. See, that's what they leave out of the Constitution. Establish justice, but to what end? Is taking the life of a Black man running justice? Is the killing of a Black woman who thought she was just getting a ticket justified? The way racism, oppression, and discrimination have become so modernized in today's society makes it feel like we're backtracking from what the civil rights movement worked to resolve. Now, I can go on and on about other people's stories and situations, but they wouldn't be mine. Therefore, it lacks an essential element, my own perspective. I'm a 16-year-old Black girl living in modern-day America. I face discrimination. I get told I'm not the average Black girl because I speak proper, don't act ghetto, and have a post-etiquette sense to my being. And people think that's a compliment, when in reality, the idea is presumed that all Black people act a certain way. Being told, you don't act your color, always confuses me, because do tell, how is a color supposed to act? Racial, class, and gender privilege have always impacted everyday lives in America, but due to the pandemic, inequality and discrimination are being amplified. At the moment, we are in a global pandemic, and there have been multiple protests depicting how powerful racial privilege is in America. Prolonged lockdown is slavery, can be read on protest signs. This insinuates that a 2-month lockdown is just as bad as centuries of slavery, of picking cotton, being raped, abused, oppressed, etc. We have people protesting a virus in policemen's faces strapped with AK-47s, spitting in their faces with no harm or consequences served to them. But Stephen Clark in his own backyard gets killed for having a cell phone in his hand. You see, if roles were reversed during these protests, in this situation, Black or brown bodies would have been dropped before their feet hit the steps of the Michigan State House. The amount of xenophobic behavior I witness from the media and the teens I go to school with is uncanny. Asian Americans go through the days of the pandemic hearing, you have corona, just because they are Asian American. Asian American doctors across the country are risking their own lives trying to save people. But just because how they look, they instead are not being praised, but being told, why are you Chinese people killing everyone? The Washington Post reported that in 1,800 reports since its March 19th launch, victims said they were spat on, stabbed while shopping, shunned for wearing masks, and barred for entering ride-hailing vehicles. It's not helpful that the president, who is the face of the United States at the moment, is contributing to these tellings with his speeches and talking about the virus, calling it the Chinese virus, and justifying his response by saying it's not racist, it comes from China, is not okay because he's encouraging racial discrimination against Asian Americans. The social and gender class during this time is plummeting. The industries have become male-dominated, resulting in a loss of work for the woman.
Women have been laid off with no form of sustained income to also care for their children they have at home. The economy is failing women, as they used to hold 77% of jobs in the health and education industry, but since the pandemic, they recite for 83% of jobs lost in that industry. Minority communities are greatly affected. The racial gaps on socioeconomic has worsened as employers are laying off people. People of color are seen as the first to go. From the Scientific American, when resources were described as abundant, despite the recent recession, white participants gave the same amount of resources to Black and white recipients. But when the same amount of resources were described as scarce on account of the recent recession, white participants without strong egalitarian beliefs gave Black recipients about 66 cents for every dollar they gave white recipients. What does this say about America? When things get tough, it's best to resort back to old ways. What we need to do is wake up and stop invoking these racial and gender disparities in the economic system in America. A lot of the protest signs portray the words, "my body, my choice," which sounds very familiar as the women's movement is fighting for the right to safe abortions, deeming that all of a sudden pro-choice is beneficial to them. You see, that's the thing. People don't care until it affects them. We have healthcare workers that have to take time out of their day from saving lives to standing in front of protesters' cars so they can't storm the Capitol buildings, which not only puts people in danger, but shows the arrogant behavior of citizens in America, where the need for a haircut is more important than the lives of multiple human beings that are more susceptible to catching the virus. They would rather put people who work these jobs in danger to suit their own needs. America needs to do better. People protest and were signs of "Make America Great Again," when America was never great to begin with. I don't think it's great that we have to protest for our lives, to be seen as human and not looked at as some inferior being. To be heard that I have a right to live just as anyone else. The color of skin tone, which is based off the amount of melanocytes a person has, should not be a factor in obtaining basic human rights. And there's always the First Amendment argument of, "It's my freedom of speech, my own opinion." But to quote James Baldwin, "We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression, denial to humanity, and my right to exist." Thank you.
Attorney Vanessa Avery has a question, followed by Attorney Stephen Hernandez.
First, let me say I thought that was excellent. Like everyone else, so we could see the research and work that you put into your essay. So thank you for all of that effort. I felt your passion, and I felt that this has impacted you personally. And so my question, as I was listening to you, was I wonder what you would say to a 5-year-old or 6-year-old child who asked you, what is it that you want to do with your life and, in terms of future aspirations, and how do you stay on track and focus in order to get there with all of what you described going on in the world? So I'd love for you to answer that for me if you can, briefly.
So the question is asking a 5-year-old how would they go about life?
No, telling a 5-year-old how you go about your life and stay on focus for your path, your future path, whatever it is. I don't know what your aspiration is, if you want to go into law or another field, or if you've even figured that out. But
okay, thank you. I would tell a 5-year-old to treat everyone as equal. I think that goes a long way, and to try to put themselves in other people's shoes, because at a young age, racism can be taught by parents to these young people, and they grow up with these ideals of how to look at people when they get older. So I would try to tell a 5-year-old to not listen to those ideals and think of their own and see everyone for a human and not as a skin tone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your powerful presentation and very, very timely presentation. My question is, how can communities of color work together to ensure that not only that their civil rights are enforced, but also to communicate solidarity in times like now?
Well, in times like that's a good question, and especially in times like now, I am seeing communities of color come together and like put aside their other differences to come for this one big thing they all have in common, which is their skin color and their race. And I think communities of color can do that by voting for people of color to be in major offices and things, because in today's age, most of our government officials are white people and it makes up 90%, but I think having people of color in office can give another perspective on the idea, because white people can't, like, they can understand it, but they can never feel the pain that people of color felt. So I think that's helpful.
Great. Seeing that there are no further questions, we're going to ask that the judges deliberate, and we will ask that the contestant mute yourself and turn off your camera, but of course stay with us. And we will ask that the interns give us your fun fact.
All right, my next fact is about religious freedom again. As mentioned earlier, the majority of the American public is comprised of Christians, with a whopping 65% of people identifying themselves as Christian. The ratio is even higher in Congress, with 92% of congressmen and women identifying as Christian. At the same time, while 23% of U.S. adults are religiously unaffiliated, only one member of Congress, Representative Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, claims no religious affiliation.
All right, thanks, Isabel. And up next we have Ayana.
Hey guys. Okay. My fun fact is about the civil rights movement again. But I also wanted to take the time, because I forgot earlier, to say that I've been really impressed with all of the essays that we've heard so far. We're also super impressed reading it. I'm blown away. I just want to take the time to say that because I forgot to earlier, but you guys should all be very proud of yourselves. Okay, so did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. actually improvised the most iconic parts of his I Have a Dream speech? On stage, near Dr. King, singer Malia Jackson reportedly kept saying, "Tell him about the dream, Martin." And many people believe this is what inspired him to improvise one of the greatest speeches in American history. Martin Luther King's original speech actually had no references to dreams at all. So there we go.
Thanks, Ayana. And I just want to ask if Aunt Yvonne, who is on the camera, could actually turn the camera off. The mic is off, but if you could just turn your camera off, that would be really helpful. Thank you. And I think, let's see, we almost there? Okay. I think our judges are coming back. And so I'm going to ask our next essayist to get ready. And that's Nicholas Wyskowski. I think, yeah, all of our judges are here. So our next essayist is Nicholas Wyskowski, who's in grade 11 at Valley Regional High School. So Nicholas, if you could turn your camera and your microphone on and present your essay, we would greatly appreciate it.
Hi, first I would like to thank the CHRO and all the judges for this opportunity. I'm Nicholas Wyskowski, and my paper is titled Americans, Guns, Balancing the Right to Bear Arms with Safety. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution states, quote, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Since the ratification of the Bill of Rights over 225 years ago, this single sentence has protected U.S. citizens' right to purchase and use firearms, with, at times, less than ideal oversight from the federal government. With the exception of the Gun Control Act of 1968, which set age and categorical limitations on who could purchase firearms and ammunition, and the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, 1994, which mandated a federal background check on people purchasing firearms, Congress has remained mostly inactive when it comes to national gun control laws, especially in recent years. A common idea, particularly amongst gun advocacy groups, is that further restricting firearm sales on a national level somehow infringes upon the Second Amendment and takes away our right to bear arms. In reality, by investing in our current system of background checks and implementing sensible changes through new gun legislation, the U.S. government has the ability to protect both the lives of its citizens and the rights given to them since the very early days of our nation. Now, we must use the tools and examples available to us to respond to the will of the people and create a safer future without harming the freedoms we hold dear. As of 2019, Gallup found that 64% of respondents believed that laws regarding the sales of firearms should be made, quote, more strict, while only 28% of respondents believed the current gun laws should be kept, and a mere 7% of respondents wanted fewer restrictions on gun sales. In fact, in every Gallup poll taken regarding laws covering gun sales since 2015, over 50% of respondents have said they believed existing gun laws should be stricter. So why have we failed to implement more gun control at the national level? Many would point to powerful gun advocacy groups lobbying Congress, including the National Rifle Association, NRA, as well as the public outcry that occurs every time people believe their guns may be taken from them. Regardless of why we have not passed gun control legislation, our failure to do so has had devastating consequences. The U.S. experiences a far higher gun violence death rate than many other similarly developed countries, and mass shootings have repeatedly rocked the nation, claiming the lives of over 2,000 innocent victims in just the past decade. As of 2017, the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation reported that the U.S. had a gun violence death rate of 4.43 deaths per 100,000 people. Based solely on socioeconomic status compared to other countries, the report predicts that the U.S. should have a gun violence death rate around 0.46 deaths per 100,000 people, revealing a massive discrepancy that highlights just how much we have failed to properly implement basic gun control. Other developed countries have not been so hesitant, however, and countries such as Australia took drastic action to restrict firearms sales after mass shootings shocked their nations. Australia and other countries with more comprehensive gun restrictions have created a blueprint for the U.S. to follow. Their success is an indicator that safety and freedom can coexist, an important balance when dealing with any of our basic rights. However, before looking at other countries and their solutions to gun control, understanding the flawed gun buying process in the U.S. that has led to an increase in gun violence is important. The aforementioned Gun Control Act of 1968 did make it illegal for certain types of people to purchase guns, including those under the age of 18, unlawful users of controlled substances, convicted felons, and those categorized as, quote, mental incompetence. Through the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, licensed gun dealers are also required to run background checks on buyers through the FBI before selling them a gun. The FBI is supposed to check a person's criminal history and mental health record, among other things, to determine if the buyer is eligible to own a firearm. However, this system is riddled with flaws that allow people who are not legally allowed to have guns to purchase them anyway. The first way around the existing background check system is for people to meet with unlicensed dealers at gun shows or over the internet and purchase firearms from them without getting a background check. Under federal law, only those whose livelihood is the selling of firearms are required to be licensed. Gun collectors and hobbyists do not fit this definition and are allowed to sell their guns for profit as unlicensed gun dealers without strict regulation. The second flaw in our system is that background checks are not always complete or accurate and allow people who should not be able to buy guns to purchase and own them. The 2015 Charleston church shooter, Dylan Roof, and the 2019 Midland, Odessa shooter were both able to purchase guns despite the fact that both should have failed a background check. Roof had previously been convicted on a felony drug charge, while the other shooter had failed a criminal background check. These two improperly carried out background checks led to the deaths of 16 innocent people, a tragic example of how important each and every background check is. The Bureau of Justice Statistics stated in their 2019 review of the National Criminal History Improvement Program, NCHIP, that some entities, which includes states, still do not submit all available records to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS, and that many agencies at the state level are still not flagging records that contain misdemeanor convictions of domestic violence, leading to unnecessary delays during firearm background checks. Incomplete records can force FBI examiners to spend additional time searching through records properly. And when gun dealers do not receive a response from the FBI stating that the buyer is ineligible to purchase a gun within 3 business days, they are free to sell the gun anyway. This is how Roof got around his background check in 2015. In total, 22% of U.S. gun owners acquired their most recent firearm without going through a background check, according to Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. This could either be due to system delays or purchases through unlicensed dealers who are not required to run background checks. Many guns acquired without a background check are used for illegal purposes, with 80% of all firearms acquired for criminal purposes being obtained from unlicensed sellers, including guns from online gun marketplaces. Allowing unlicensed gun sellers to continue to provide firearms to potentially dangerous people without needing to run background checks, and for NICS to continue to operate without comprehensive and accurate records is unacceptable. Federal law currently only requires licensed dealers to run background checks, something that must change in order to crack down on guns acquired for criminal purposes. Expanding NICS by giving it increased access to state records and an extended period to investigate criminal records is key to improving background checks for licensed gun sellers, while also expanding background checks to patrol unlicensed sellers as well. In addition to enacting stricter background check protocols, the U.S. should also consider following Australia's gun legislation. After a mass shooting that killed 35 people in 1996, the conservative Australian government completely overhauled the country's existing gun laws, with impressive results. Since 1996, Australia has seen far fewer mass shootings than before their gun legislation overhaul, and went from 1997 to 2013 without a single mass shooting. Under Australia's revised gun laws, 3 important new regulations were created. First, semi-automatic rifles and shotguns were banned for their ability to quickly kill many people. Second, buyers were forced to undergo thorough background checks with a 28-day waiting period. Third, buyers became required to present a, quote, justifiable reason in order to own a gun. A massive government buyback of semi-automatic rifles and shotguns was also an effective measure used to reduce the number of extremely deadly firearms available to the population, nearly halving the number of gun-owning households in Australia, according to the BBC. Since these restrictions in 1996, not only has the frequency of mass shootings decreased in Australia, but homicide and suicide rates have declined as well. Although stark gun advocates in the U.S. will inevitably see these restrictions as excessive and infringing upon their Second Amendment rights, it is important to emphasize that this gun legislation does not prevent people from owning guns. Under Australia's laws, people are still free to own guns and to exercise their right to bear arms. For citizens who have no intention of using a gun to harm others, this will not deny them the ability to own certain firearms. However, as Australia has exemplified, their gun control legislation has made it harder for people intending to do harm to access guns capable of slaughtering many innocent people in a short period of time, which in turn has lowered their rate of mass shootings and allowed them to live more peacefully. If the U.S. implements more thorough background checks through increased compliance from state authorities and longer wait times for people purchasing guns, while outlawing unnecessarily powerful guns such as semi-automatic rifles and shotguns, we could create a society that effectively balances the freedom of its people with their safety. Americans can still own guns under these restrictions, but those who should not have guns will no longer be able to purchase them under a revised system meant to reduce both criminal gun purchases and access to unnecessarily powerful firearms. It is time for us to stop allowing guns to infringe upon innocent people's rights to life and the pursuit of happiness. However, in order for this new gun control legislation to be truly effective, we must be bold and unafraid of the political consequences of implementing basic checks on our right to bear arms. Otherwise, we will continue to allow thousands of innocent people to be killed each year because of our inaction. Thank you.
Commissioner Kapoor has a question, and who
Yes.
is following him? I don't see any other hands at this moment. Oh, followed by Attorney Vanessa Avery and Attorney Steve Hernandez.
Yes, thank you, Nicholas, for your, first of all, great name. Second of all, a great presentation. My question to you is, if we, after November, if the United States Senate is controlled by the Democrats, but does not have a 60 vote threshold, because that's what breaks the filibuster, as you know. My question originates from several years ago, an amendment to a bill passed in the Senate that closed the loopholes on background checks. And you talked about that extensively. And I think that that is one of the key issues to this problem. So do you think that this is enough to abolish the legislative filibuster over?
Do I think?
I mean, if there's 55 votes in the Senate in after November to pass comprehensive background checks, closing all the loopholes that you talked about, which I really think are systemic to this problem, should the Democratic Party get rid of something that has been part of, you know, the framework of the Senate for, well, since its founding, but really has been used in the last 50 to 60 years very forcefully? Should we get rid of that and let the Senate just be 51 votes?
I think that's that's an interesting question. I think that we should not get rid of the filibuster because its ability to preserve the minority party's voice in Congress. I think that what we saw in Australia was that politicians had to be willing to accept the consequences of supporting something that might not be popular with their constituents for the greater good of the people. And I think that in America, that's going to be important to implementing strong gun control when we have not just the support of a single party, but when there's bipartisan support. Because I think otherwise, if we do abolish the filibuster, we hinder kind of a fundamental principle of democracy, which is that the minority party still has a voice and has the ability to influence or impact bills.
Well, I admire your optimism, and I hope you're right.
I hope I am.
Nicholas, I will follow that with my question first, but let me just acknowledge the great job you did here. And again, we can see the research that went into this. You seem to have developed some expertise. And so my question is going to follow up on a comment you made about gun hobbyists. I'm sure, given everything that you've talked about, that you've probably come across some of the information about 3D guns and ghost guns. And I'm curious as to what you think about the ability of people to, there's been some discussion back and forth and debate as to whether people should be allowed to print these guns and fly under the radar, if you will, and not have to have background checks and such, because they say, well, it's just for my personal hobby. What do you think about that? And do you have any thoughts as to how we can try and get at that issue?
Sure. I don't think that 3D printed guns or guns constructed manually from different parts should be legal. I think that even if people say they have earnest intentions for protection, there's always the tragedy where someone creates their own gun and uses it to harm others. So I don't think that those should be legal. I think that it's exceedingly difficult to monitor their creation. I think what could potentially help is that for people who might buy separate parts to construct a gun, monitoring and restricting those purchases might be helpful, but I'm not entirely sure how to do that. If someone, for example, buys a 3D printer and manages to create a gun, I'm just not sure how to restrict those in that scenario.
Thank you. Hopefully at some point we'll have some answers to this. I think we're grappling with these same questions as adults. Appreciate the effort.
Thank you, Nicholas, for your very, very balanced discussion and also your balanced responses to what are indeed very complex issues. What do you say to the gun rights advocate who says if the question here is identifying people who should not have guns because of a mental condition or a violent disposition, why don't we deal with the mental condition or the violent disposition instead of starting with gun limits?
Well, I would say I agree that if someone is coming from a case of severe mental illness, that we should try and help them, but that doesn't justify not restricting gun sales. Because mental health is not set in stone. It changes over time. And if somebody, for example, goes to buy a gun and then something tragic happens, they lose a loved one, or they could easily become in that scenario that we tried to prevent, where someone who's severely grieving, who shouldn't legally be able to have a gun, has, say, a semi-automatic rifle and has the ability to kill many people. So I think that by shifting this discussion to mental health, we've ignored the real issue that we're still allowing civilians to have access to highly powerful weapons. If they didn't have access to these weapons, there would not be news stories of people who maybe were mentally disturbed going out and shooting dozens of people because they wouldn't have access. So I think to a gun rights advocate who says that, I would say you're missing the issue. The issue is the gun. That is the consistency in all of these shootings, not the person.
Great, thank you so much. At this time, we're going to ask that our judges deliberate, and we're going to ask that the guests turn off your mic and you turn off your camera. Great job. And we will hear from one of our interns while the judges deliberate. And the next legal intern, please give us a fun fact.
That's Kayla.
Hi. Okay, so I have another fun fact for you guys. This one is about LGBTQ rights again. So in 1924, the Society of Human Rights was founded by Henry Gerber in Chicago. It was the first documented gay rights organization. Gerber was inspired to found the society while he was in the army stationed in Germany. While he was in Germany, he observed a more open homosexual community than that of America's. So when he returned to America, him and a few friends founded the Society for Human Rights to protect and promote the rights and interests of gay and lesbian individuals. So the Society for Human Rights also published the earliest documented homosexual periodical, which was titled Freedom and Friendship.
Okay.
Thanks, Kayla. Next up is Jordan.
Hi. So my next fun fact is also on bullying. So now all 50 states in the United States have anti-bullying legislation. So now every state has it after Montana in 2015. Connecticut, the legislation includes the definition of bullying, a list of protected groups, district policy requirements, outlines for reporting and investigations. So when bullying occurs, outlines for schools what they're to do, and the actual legislation consequences.
She was able to answer questions that were complex.
Number
Policy,
7.
safeguarding supports set up for students that are
Alex,
bullied,
Juliet, your
bullying,
audio's on.
as well as prevention education to prevent bullying, staff training to as well, and that's my fun fact.
Thanks, Jordan. I think we're just waiting for Alex and Juliet at this point. We're just really Alex.
No problem.
Okay. think we'll just, let's see. I just want to get our next essayist ready, which is our next essayist is Trinity Somanini from Waterford High School, grade 11. If we ask you just to get ready, I think we actually are ready for you. You can turn your microphone and your camera on and get ready to present your essay to us, please.
Hello, I just wanted to thank you all for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. My essay is titled America Under the Gun. 100 people will be shot dead in America today. Some days it could be more, and if it's less, then more will die tomorrow or the next day. It seems to an ever-increasing number of Americans that nothing, no matter how horrific, will lead to tighter restrictions on guns. According to Everytown for Gun Safety, a nonprofit organization that campaigns for gun control and the end of gun violence, there are approximately over 37,000 gun-related deaths in the U.S. each year, a number that continues to grow. Of those 37,000 deaths, around 22,000 are suicide, while the remaining 13,000 are the results of homicide. A huge part of gun violence in the U.S. is due to the high prevalence of mass shootings. Though there is not an official definition of what constitutes to be a mass shooting, for example, the Gun Violence Archive considers a mass shooting where 4 or more people are shot or wounded, while Congress in 2013 deemed a mass shooting to have 3 or more dead in a single incident. Regardless of the differences in definition, it is without a doubt that the number of mass shootings in the U.S. are increasing in frequency and becoming deadlier. In 1999, 13 students were shot dead and 24 were injured at Columbine High School. In 2012, 27 students were killed and 2 were wounded at Sandy Hook Elementary School. In 2016, 49 people were murdered and 53 injured at Pulse nightclub in Orlando. In 2017, 58 individuals were murdered and 851 more were injured at Las Vegas, the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. When children and teenagers are being gunned down in their classroom, when churches and synagogues and mosques are being attacked, when perpetrators fire hundreds of rounds in seconds and impart death and destruction in their own sick wars, it is time to ban those weapons of mass destruction. Though it won't and can't prevent all gun deaths in the US, gun control saves lives. Countries like Australia and Canada, among others like Germany, Japan, and Switzerland, are proof that gun control can work. The 1996 Port Arthur massacre in Australia left 35 dead and 18 injured after the gunman used an AR-15 to perpetrate the deadliest mass shooting in Australian history. 12 days later, before all the victims had been laid down to rest, Australia had unanimously tightened licensing and registration requirements and restricted access to semi-automatic weapons and limited their sales. Australia's national government coordinated a massive buyback program, which saw no mass killings for the next 22 years. It's estimated that Australia's 1996 firearm reform saved around 200 lives each year. In Canada, less than 2 weeks after a gunman went on a killing rampage in Nova Scotia, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the country's ban on assault-style firearms. The Nova Scotia attacks, which happened earlier this year in April, saw 22 civilians murdered and 3 more injured, making it the deadliest mass shooting in Canada's modern history. Yet by May 1st, new regulations had been passed to ban the use, sale, and import of more than 1,000 firearms. Now, no simple solution will deal with the gun violence pandemic here in the United States. Too many Americans believe in their Second Amendment right and the right to bear arms, and there's no guarantee that laws present in other countries will work in this one. But we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to future generations to try. We can and we should strengthen our background check policies. Though they are present, they are weak and filled with loopholes. For instance, since only licensed gun dealers are required to perform background checks, private individuals and online retailers do not have to, almost 42% of gun owners don't undergo background checks, according to a 2017 study. Like stricter universal background checks, red flag laws, also known as extreme risk prevention orders, force gun intervention to be determined on by a case-by-case basis. Red flag laws are focused on behavior and tracking and stopping potentially dangerous behavior. There have also been calls for the U.S. to institute a national buyback program. A study from Harvard University found that the gun homicide rate dropped 42% and the gun suicide rate fell 58% after the Port Arthur massacre in Australia. However, a full mandatory national firearm buyback policy is unrealistic here in the United States, as it would raise multiple constitutional issues, and moreover, since the U.S. has more guns per capita, the government would spend exponentially more money in instituting a full buyback program. Importantly, many are not saying to take away all firearms from circulation. However, mass shootings become more frequent and more deadly. It becomes reasonable to institute a ban on all semi-automatic weapons that were used to commit mass murder during the Las Vegas massacre, at Pulse nightclub, and at Sandy Hook. No one should have and no one should need a military-grade weapon. It is without a doubt that America has a guns death epidemic. If you add up all the U.S. soldiers who have died in every war in our nation's history, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to World War II and the recent wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, that number is still lower than the number of civilians who have died in gun-related incidents in the United States in the past 50 years. The CDC reports 1.5 million gun-related deaths since 1968, while Veterans Affairs records less than that. Almost 1.2 million Americans have been killed fighting in every war in U.S. history. And as citizens, we deserve more than thoughts and prayers. We deserve to be safe at school. We deserve to be safe at hospitals. We deserve to be safe at work. We deserve to be safe at places of worship. And we deserve to be safe at places like libraries, shops, parks, and beaches. And while public figures and politicians continue to relay their thoughts and prayers, gun violence, whether it is suicide, homicide, or mass shootings, will continue to happen and will continue to increase. And this will continue until we agree to stricter gun laws and fewer guns. Until then, all those who fight against sensible gun legislation have no business simply expressing their sympathies. They offer words, thoughts, and prayers, all of which at this point are meaningless because we want action. It really is simple. Studies in foreign firearm policies show that stricter gun laws and fewer guns mean fewer gun deaths. They mean fewer mass shootings. The United States is an outlier among peaceful developed nations where mass shootings are concerned due to the unprecedented number of them. This is because we are an outlier among peaceful developed nations in the number of guns that we have, which is exacerbated by the ease of obtaining them and the lenient laws regulating them. We as a country face a choice, and every gun owner and every gun proponent faces a choice. We can allow easy access to guns and the fun that they may bring, and let people enjoy the sense of power and control and masculinity guns may offer. In exchange for that power, thousands and thousands upon Americans will continue to die unnecessarily. Instead, we can agree that the only way to prevent gun violence and gun deaths is to regulate guns, sacrificing the illusion that a gun equals freedom. Thank you. I'm gonna go.
Thank you. That was incredible. Do our judges have questions? Attorney Avery.
Thank you. That was excellent, like those before you. And I would like to, if I can, start off by asking you the same question that I asked the last contestant regarding hobbyists, ghost guns, and 3D printable guns. Given everything that you've studied and discussed up to this point in terms of strategies for gun control, do you have any suggestions for how we might address the 3D printable gun issue?
Great question. I think it should be illegal in all 50 states. I mean, it poses a legitimate threat, and even if you may have good intentions, it's still not safe for everyone. So it definitely should be illegal. I'm very proud to be in Connecticut and living in based on the 2019 law that was passed in our state government that banned ghost guns last year, and I really think that all 49 states should follow suit as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Crawford. Oh, you're muted.
All right.
Okay.
Better? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Again, certainly extend congrats to recognition of the work that you put into the preparation of the essay and basically the thoughtfulness with which you presented it. Given that our Supreme Court and the US Supreme Court has said that there is indeed an individual right to bear arms, and as we know, though, no right is absolute. And I think we also know that whoever defines the debate will win it every time, hands down. So in terms of your circle, whether it's your classmates, your teachers, family members, when there's a discussion around guns and gun control, has there been any discussion in terms of rephrasing the debate? How do you get to, whenever you say gun control and it triggers certain reactions, has there been any discussion on how to present what you want at the end, where issues like suicide reduction, domestic violence, etc.? Has there ever been any discussion on how to rephrase the issue other than using the term gun control?
In my community, school, family, we haven't had those discussions yet. And and the people who I have talked to who do own guns and do value their Second Amendment, I've been trying to have those conversations, especially with my family and my very liberal friends, mostly because I think in the terms of gun control, a lot of people, at least the people I've had discussions with, think it's a term that we're trying to take away all your guns and trying to take away all the guns in circulation in the US. And I think that that's not what we're trying to do. We respect the Second Amendment. We just think that there are certain guns that shouldn't be in circulation, like semi-automatic military grade weapons. So I think that's a great point. And that's what I've been trying to do, and I'll try to do. But we definitely should think about rephrasing the term gun control, because many people don't think it's a very accurate definition of what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
All right, I do not see any other hand raised. So I ask that all the judges, again, turn your cameras and your microphones off so that you can score. And I want to thank you for your brilliant essay. And now we are going to move to our very capable CHRO interns. You think there could not possibly be any more fun facts? Oh, but there's more fun facts. Yes, there is. So we will be moving on to, I believe, Kayla is next.
Yeah, so we do have more fun facts for you. So according to USA Today, in 36 states, there are no legal requirements for gun registration, no permit is needed, and no license is necessary to purchase or own a firearm, such as a rifle, shotgun, or handgun.
And that's a very topical fun fact, given the fact that we've now had 2 essays about gun control. Next up is Isabel.
Hi all, I have another fact about COVID-19. All the increased hate and blatant racism present in countries outside of the US as well, with political parties in the UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, Greece, and France also buying into the xenophobic idea of a Chinese virus. Xenophobia is the fear and prejudice against people from other nations, and in the modern times it seems to be prejudice against China and other East Asian countries.
Thanks, Isabel. Next up is Nat.
Hi, everyone. Another fact I have about immigration is that until the 1960s, immigrant men outnumbered immigrant women. However, by the 1970s, the number of female immigrants largely surpassed the number of male immigrants. In 2015, 51.4% of the US immigrant population was female and 48.6% was male. Today, women outnumber men in the foreign-born population.
Thanks, Nat. And I just want to, we have one more judge we're waiting for, but in that time, we want to make sure that Samantha Tarr, you are up next. So please be prepared, and Cheryl will formally introduce you.
Yes, have all of the judges returned? I don't see
Just
Juliet.
waiting for Judge Crawford.
Okay, so Samantha Tarr, are you ready? She is in the 11th grade and she is from Windsor High School, and we will let you know when to turn your camera on as soon as Judge Crawford arrives in our screen. Then we will have you turn your camera on and be prepared to present your essay. We have only 2 contestants left, 2 essayists left in this Kids Court competition, which has been really enlightening. I'm very impressed with all of the students. So it's great. I see that all of the judges have arrived now. And so
Sorry
if
for the
you
delay. I had a little problem with the arrows.
No, it's okay. So Samantha Tarr, 11th grade from Windsor High School, please turn your camera on, unmute yourself, and we are ready to hear from you.
Good evening, judges and guests. My name is Samantha, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my essay. My title is The Hardships of Immigration. This country over the past year has unfairly treated minorities in this country through racial profiling, discrimination, slavery, mass incarceration, and immigration policy. One may ask, what is immigration? Immigration is the act of moving from a country to another country to permanently live in. One might immigrate for a variety of reasons, such as freedom, safety, employment opportunities, educational purpose, environmental factors, or to reunite with family. If immigrants decide to leave their country permanently to live in, why are they held hostage at borders or placed in detention centers? There are thousands of families immigrating to America for a better life because they all want to achieve the American dream. If the American dream is attainable in the United States, why are people being hindered from this dream of having better jobs, receiving better pay, going to a better school, and having a better family? People often immigrate into a developed country for a better life, into a country that is open-minded and accepting for who they are, disregarding of their race, gender, or religion. The hardships of immigrating include having to raise a family in a new, unfamiliar culture, in which parents quickly find their kids Americanized. The quality and availability of education, and the inferior quality of medical services and facilities which all citizens should have access to. Immigrating to another country can cause a lot of pain and trauma because of separating families unnecessarily. Over the past years, the media has portrayed immigrants in this country as violent criminals and tourists. U.S. immigration policies and enforcement policies in America today have directly and indirectly affected minorities. Children are being separated from families and placed into foster homes. Couples are being divided. Immigration policies passed in the mid-1980s and 1990s have driven the mass deportation system we see today. An example is the Operation Wetback, which used military-style tactics to remove Mexican immigrants. This was the biggest mass deportation of undocumented workers in American history in the 20th century. Tens of thousands were shoved into boats, buses, and planes and were sent to unfamiliar places in Mexico, where they struggled to rebuild their lives. Separating married couples and their children, or single parents and their children, separating married couples and their children, or single parents and their children has left these families in vulnerable positions, like destroying bonds that have been built over the past years between these people. When this happens, children who have been placed into new families experience some changes in their daily routines and family responsibilities and roles. On the other hand, these children might have some physiological and behavioral problems like difficulty in sleeping, anxiety, crying, and increased fears. Not only children struggle as immigrants, but parents are likely to live in poverty, overcrowded spaces, and face financial strains trying to pay rent or bills. When immigrants get into the country, they face challenges like assimilation into the new society and maintaining their culture. If America is the land of free, why are there less opportunities for immigrants coming into these countries who are trying to attain or achieve the American dream? And why don't all immigrants have equal opportunities? Why is there a wall being built up in the country to prevent people from coming or are being left in detention centers? Building the walls is not going to make America great again, but rather bring a lot of trauma to the children being separated, the people who are left at the detention centers, husband and wives being separated, and siblings being separated from each other. America should be the country that should accept all people, no matter the background, religion, or race. This can create unity among us all. In addition, for acceptance for all, what America needs is a leader who is willing to say that undocumented immigrants and workers living in the United States do not hurt society but enhance it. America needs a leader who is willing to provide undocumented immigrants a path to citizenship in this country while making sure legislation in favor of comprehensive immigration reform will be passed in both the House and the Senate. America needs a leader who will stand up for the rights of undocumented immigrants while challenging those who question their contributions to the United States. And America also needs a leader who will enforce and strengthen the nation's border patrol, but at the same time promote legal immigration into the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Stephen Hernandez, Attorney Hernandez, followed by Attorney Lisa Giliberto.
Thank you so much for that thoughtful and forceful argument. Considering the rights to food and adequate standards of living that are recognized national norms, what is your response to the argument that people coming to the United States merely looking for economic opportunity should not enjoy the same access as people who are coming here seeking fundamental safety?
Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was a convoluted way to ask the question. So international norms have recognized the right to food and the right to do you differentiate between people coming here for economic opportunity versus people coming here for political asylum, for instance?
Okay, so to me personally, I think people come here for both reasons because their country might not have these kind of opportunities over there. So they might be in the United States for all these opportunities because we know the United States is the land of free and it has like a lot of opportunities here. So to me, I think it's for both reasons. Thank you.
That was a great, great essay. Thank you so much for presenting that. Also, I want to give a shout out to Windsor High. I'm an alum. I won't tell you what year, but anyway, so if you were our leader, what would your immigration policy be, if anything?
Okay, so I would want like people to come. I would want to like give assistance to everyone trying to come into this country. You know, like not try to stop people at the border because it's causing like a lot of trauma. And then I don't want to like separate families too. I want them to like reunite and be together. So yeah.
Thank you.
Do our judges have any other questions? Well, we will ask that our judges deliberate. And thank you to the essayist. Good job. We're going to ask that you mute yourself and stay on the line, of course, and turn your camera off. And we will hear from our executive interns with some more fun facts. And I wanted to say that the interns found these fun facts to raise your awareness about civil and human rights issues. So congratulations to them. I knew that we had selected a brilliant bunch of students to work with us.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. We all appreciate that. My next fact is about religious freedom again. It was found that the most diverse U.S. religious groups in regards to race and ethnicity include the Seventh-day Adventists, Muslims, and Jehovah's Witnesses. On the contrary, it was found that the least diverse religious groups are the National Baptist Convention, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and the Lutheran Church.
I think up next is Ayana.
Yes. Okay. So my fun fact is again about the civil rights movement. Have you guys ever wondered when the earliest recorded protest against slavery was? Well, I'm here to tell you that it was in 1688 by the Quakers. Most people don't know that, but the Quakers do have a history of protest, and they saw the slave trade as an grave injustice against their fellow man and used the Golden Rule to argue against such inhumane treatment. Many of them believe that regardless of skin color, we should do unto others as we would have done unto ourselves, or in other words, treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah. Thanks, Ayana. Next up is Nat.
Hi again. So my last immigration fact of the day is that immigrants added an estimated $2 trillion to the US GDP in 2016. Immigrants are overrepresented in the labor force and also boost productivity through innovation and entrepreneurship.
Thanks, Nat. And next up we have Isabel.
Back again for another COVID fact. It was found that nearly 42.5 million Americans filed for unemployment in the last 11 weeks, pushing unemployment to nearly 19.5% by the end of May. Someone is unemployed when they are looking for work but cannot find a job, unfortunately. For reference, average unemployment is around 3 to 4%, and during the Great Depression in the 1920s and 30s, unemployment was up to 25%.
Thanks, Isabel. We have now come to the, we are all set. We have now come to the moment of our last essayist for the high school finalists. And that person is Annalise Rady. And hopefully, Annalise, you are ready to present your essay. So please turn on your microphone and your camera. Annalise Rady is in grade 10 at the Community Learning Project. Take it away.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I'm so excited to be here. And my topic is on bullying. So a lot of bullying goes unnoticed because it is not blatantly obvious to onlookers and sometimes even to the person being bullied. A lot of people seem to think of bullying as direct name-calling, pushing, shoving, or cyberbullying. These are all classified as forms of bullying because they are all blunt and noticeable. While these are the most identifiable forms of bullying, in reality there are many other forms that often go unnoticed. StopBullying.gov defines bullying as unwanted, aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. That behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. This definition reaches beyond typical name-calling and pushing. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics, 1 out of every 5, or 20.2%, of students report being bullied. I believe that there are many forms of bullying used that are not widely recognized as bullying, including exclusion, talking behind someone's back, and saying hurtful jokes. These forms of bullying can and often are much more subtle and can be a lot easier to get away with for that reason. Since these forms of bullying are much less obvious, it can be hard for kids being bullied to tell someone for fear of whoever they tell not believing them. It can also be harder for them to stand up for themselves because often people who bully in these more subtle forms will say they are just joking. It is important to educate kids about the effects of bullying in all forms. I think it is also important to start this education at a fairly young age and prevent bullying before it starts. I have seen kids start to be exclusionary and start to engage in mean behavior as young as 8, even though it is generally thought of as an issue beginning in middle school. I have seen very young kids at my dance studio be rude and exclusionary to each other, often in the form of picking their one best friend and only wanting to be paired with that one friend. This may not seem like a big deal to people who are not involved, but I know firsthand that it really is a big deal when it's happening to you, because I had a similar experience when I was 10. It was an acting group I was part of. A girl that I was very good friends with decided she only wanted to talk to her other friend and would only hang out with that one best friend and purposefully exclude me. She would also say rude things to me periodically, but when I called her out on it, she would say she was joking. The exclusionary behavior and mean words affected me for about a year before I learned how to deal with it. Similar things have happened to me, even recently, but since I am older and know how to deal with it now, it does not bother me very much. I think a lot of organizations try to prevent bullying, but they need to take a different approach. Bullying still prevails in these organizations. I have seen examples of these strategies not working because bullying can be hidden, especially the kinds of bullying that are not as obvious. At my old dance studio, there was a program they used for the students to promote kindness and inclusiveness, and they would advertise it on their website and social media. Despite this, the studio had a very exclusionary atmosphere that did not foster kindness. I was usually excluded by the girls in the company. The kids in the company would do activities and listen to the lesson about being kind, but not change their behavior. It did not seem like the teachers noticed the exclusionary behaviors because they were fairly discreet to the people who were not involved. It sometimes seems that the only focus of magazines and anti-bullying campaigns is on kids learning to live with being excluded or being treated badly by their peers. This seems to be the case in magazines like Girls' Life and American Girl. A lot of girls read these magazines, and I did when I was younger, so it is important for them to talk about those issues. When I was younger, I would see sections in articles like Girls' Life magazine and American Girl magazine on how to deal with bullies. These magazines are filled with articles on how to stand up for yourself against a bully, but the strategies usually are not applicable to less obvious kinds of bullying. In a September 4th, 2019 article on the Girls' Life magazine website called "This is the Best Way to Stand Up to Your School Bully," Kayla L. offers tips including know your true friends and seek help. Both of these things can be hard to do when you are experiencing less obvious types of bullying. In my experience, the people who I was friends with were the people who were being mean to me and excluding me, and I didn't have many other friends. At the time, it was hard to see that those people were not my true friends. Seeking help can also be hard to do when you experience less obvious forms of bullying. Talking to someone about being bullied is hard in the first place, but asking for help when the bullying is less obvious can be even scarier because they might be scared that whoever they are telling will not believe them. I think it's important to help people be able to deal with being bullied, and I think there are a lot of great resources online to help with that, but there needs to be more resources to help kids with less obvious types of bullying. There also needs to be more education about less types of bullying so that people who are being affected by it are not afraid to talk about it or tell someone, and so that people do not think that bullying of any kind is acceptable. Thank you.
Nice job. Thank you. Now let's see. We have Attorney Hernandez has a question.
So as a self-declared expert on these issues, I really have to say that was very, very thoughtful. I think your grasp and understanding not only of the laws, but also of the personal anecdote that really makes the law comes to life is very, very good. My question to you is, what is, to your mind, the role of adults in ensuring positive school climates for kids in school?
I've thought about this one a lot. I think that a lot of times why bullying happens is because kids are surrounded by environments that are not inclusive and they're not welcoming, and the adults in their lives, like their teachers, don't have a good example for them. So I think that it really does start with the adults in kids' lives, like teachers, setting a good example and kind of making an inclusive atmosphere, because kids aren't born mean and they don't, like, they're influenced by the world around them. So I think that if adults kind of create an inclusive atmosphere and they educate about being kind to each other and not bullying, then I think that, yes, adults have a very important role to play in that.
Other questions? Judge Crawford.
Hi. I'll appreciate the effort that you put into preparing and presenting the essay. I have a question given more like your social group. Social media has become the good, the bad, and the ugly in some respects. And how do you and your circle, in terms of your high school or church or whatever group, how do you deal with when there's what's seen as bullying online? How do you discuss among yourselves the ways to deal with it, either reduce it, eliminate it, in terms of how you and those in your circle cope?
I think that I have been very lucky to, right now and in the age that, because when I was younger and I was getting bullied, I didn't really have social media. I was like 9 and 10. And I'm very lucky in that I have very good friends right now who, like, there isn't a lot of bullying that goes on social media for us. However, I have seen celebrities that are my age have to deal with a lot of bullying, and so, like, people are, like, celebrities that are my age have been called fat, they've been called ugly, and all these horrible things. And so my friends and I have talked a little bit about that, and just we think that it's great how they're dealing with it. They're not really addressing it too much, because I think that it just kind of adds fuel to the fire if you respond to that on social media, and it can kind of spiral out of control. But even though I haven't had personal experience with that, I have seen other people deal with that, and my friends and I have talked about that.
Thank you.
Attorney Avery.
I want to echo what everyone else said, and I also want to really compliment your courage in being willing to talk about this topic specifically and your personal experiences. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and I'm sure that there are people who are listening right now who you're helping. My question for you is, in terms of, if you could help describe, I think a lot of times when people think about bullying, they think it's because they are from a different background, they look different, things of that nature. And I think it's important for people to understand. I know when I was younger, I went to a school where a lot of people looked like me, and bullying still went on. A lot of this stuff, activities still went on. So can you speak to that and talk about, for those other students who are listening right now, how this can sort of present itself?
So is it, like, how can it present itself in ways other than being bullied on grounds of, like, your skin color and stuff like that?
Right, your race or your gender. I mean, sometimes it can be from someone who looks just like you, right?
Yes. So I have, in the forms of bullying that I've experienced, it definitely has not been about your skin color, what you looked like, or anything like that. And I think that that kind of is a misconception. So I think that bullying also occurs it doesn't even have to do with the person who's being bullied. It often doesn't have to do with them. And I think that often it comes from someone's own insecurities, and I think often will find the first person who they think they can hurt. And I don't think that it has to do with race or anything at all. In some cases, I mean, obviously it does, but sometimes it doesn't have to do with those things, and it just has to do with the person who's bullying.
Thank you. I think it's important for people to hear that. Thank you again for presenting today.
Thank you. Any other questions? Annalise, thank you very much for your essay, and I echo what Attorney Avery said for your braveness in describing your own contact with that behavior, that terrible behavior. So we have now concluded the high school portion of our competition. And if the judges could again send their scores over, I'm going to ask Cheryl to take over because she is going to go through what's happening next. Cheryl.
Thank you, Michelle. Congratulations to each and every one of you from the middle school division to the high school division. We were very impressed. You have enlightened us. It is an honor to hear your presentations and to know that we're in good hands in the future. You have presented us with issues and arguments that really define this competition for us. We wanted to hear how the world could be changed and how Connecticut could be better and could do better as it relates to civil and human rights issues. And I think that you've presented us with a great deal of things that we need to start working on as a civil rights agency, as adults, as teachers, and parents, listening to your perspective. I think it's really important. In entering this competition, we're competing against students from all across the state of Connecticut. You did really well. Your papers were outstanding because there were a number of papers from different schools. Some schools did not have finalists to make it to this last step in our competition. So congratulations to each and every one of you. If you made it to the finalists, you can know that you are definitely among some of the brightest students who actually are concerned with civil and human rights issues in the state of Connecticut. So congratulations. For our winners, I wanted to say what the prize amounts were for each place. And so everyone who made it to the finals will get a prize. You will be awarded a plaque. You will be awarded a gavel. In case in the future you become a judge, you can remember your kids' court gavel. And then when you become an actual judge, you'll get one issued by the state or the feds. Also, I wanted to tell you that you get a monetary prize. So everyone will walk away with multiple things, and you'll get a citation from the State of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. So in the middle school division, first place will receive $200 in addition to the things that I said. Second place, $100. Third place, $50. And fourth and fifth place, you're runners up, and so you will receive $25. And it won't be that you'll get cash in the mail. We will be sending you a gift card. For the high school division, the first place finalist receives $300, second place is $200, third place is $100, and the two runners-up receive $25 each. So those are the prizes, and while we await the announcement regarding our high school division, I have received the information about who has won the finals in the middle school division. So I think that we can announce those winners now. I will first announce the runners up. We have two of them, and they are Mary Hanan and Bridget Lloyd Taylor. Congratulations to you. Excellent job. In third place, we have Srinidhi Bala. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. I hope not. And you are going to receive a $50 gift card. Our second place winner is Armani Snellings. Congratulations, and you will receive a $100 gift card. And these are Visa or MasterCard gift cards that you will be receiving. Our first place winner of the 2020 Connecticut Kids Court Middle School Division is Akshara Malapati, you get a $200 gift card. Congratulations to all of the middle school finalists. You did an excellent job, and you have encouraged us, and we thank you for that. Now I am checking my board to see if I have received the finalists yet. No, for the winners for the high school competition, we are still waiting for those to come in. We see a hand raised by our executive director. Tanya, did you have a few words to say to the winners of the middle school division? Is that why your hand's raised?
That was another accident, but I do want to say that each and every one of them did an outstanding job. I am so very impressed with all of our young people and their very sophisticated presentations this evening. I think, as one of the judges said earlier, we are in very good hands. And as Deputy Director Sharp said, we will be implementing some of these suggestions.
We certainly will be implementing them. We are still waiting, and it might take another minute or two to get the announcements for the high school students. The results are being tabulated. I see a little downloading symbol. So I am wondering when it's going to come through. Okay, so here we go. Our high school essayists and their families and teachers, are you ready for this? Okay, we have our runners up that I will announce, who will both receive $25 gift card. And those two students are Annalise Rady and Samantha Tarr. Those are our runners up in the competition. We had a tie for first place. So I'm going to announce the second place winner, and then we know that we have a tie at the top. So our second place winner is Olima Jolie Desarmes. Excellent job, and you are going to receive a $200 gift card. So a $200 gift card. Now, our first place winners jointly are, and Michelle's going to say their names because I really don't want to not pronounce them properly. She's so much better at this.
Well, and by process of elimination, our first place winners are Nicholas Wyskowski and Srinidhi Somanini. Congratulations.
Congratulations, and you both will receive $300 Visa or MasterCard gift cards in addition to the other prizes. Congratulations. You can leave a note in our meeting chat if you want to say congratulations to the students. We want to say on behalf of the State of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, thank you to our judges. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us here tonight and to listen to the essays of these students. Thank you to our staff who have joined us. Thank you to the schools, to the students, to the teachers, to the principals. We are in an unprecedented time, and for you to take time out of your schedule to participate in this competition, which was because of the technical nature of it, and this being our first remote competition, longer, I think, than we expected, but it was well worth every minute of the hours that we spent here this evening. No voices are more important than the voices of our youth. We respect you. We respect you, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for each and every one of you. The brilliance that was exhibited here today is breathtaking. So any of you who are interested in an internship with the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, please go to our website and get the information, because one of our interns, Kayla Anthony, who gave some fun facts, has actually been an intern with us. This, I think, is her 4th year. So we want civil rights forward thinking students to intern with our agency. And we take college students and law school students and one high school student every summer. So please stay in contact with the commission. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, go to our website. Your voice is important, and today you have defined for us the importance of kids speaking up and speaking out. Everyone have a wonderful evening and take care. The Commission on Human Rights and Opportunity says one mission, one voice, and one commission. Signing off. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Judge Crawford. Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate you.